Welcome to Extraterrestrial Reality. Today I want to talk about the psychology of people who are denying the reality of the extraterrestrial presence. And what spurred me into putting this podcast together today was an article that I had read earlier this morning on Psychology Today, written by Eric Hasseltine, PhD. And the title of this article is "The Danger of UFOs is Not What You Think. Our Psychological Response to the Unfamiliar Holds the Real Threat." And basically, what I got out of this article, the gist of the entire thing is Hasseltine argues that basically because there's this giggle factor involved with UFOs and reporting them by people within the military, and people afraid to take it seriously, that what this could cause, what it could lead to, is that we could end up getting caught with our pants down if some foreign enemy country with some new technology, leapfrog technology, all of a sudden shows up and we're just not prepared for it. And that's the danger of this, because it's this there's this giggle factor associated with UFOs. People think it's always funny. UFOs, that's crazy, that kind of attitude. So what I want to do here is I also want to provide my own thoughts on the psychological response of some people with regard to the extraterrestrial presence and UFOs. I don't think you need a PhD for what I'm going to talk about later. Anyway, let's get into this article here. It states, I'm going to read it from the beginning here. It says, "I knew an intelligence officer who, decades ago, returned from the field with strong evidence that an adversary might be employing extremely unorthodox techniques to mask their activities. When he presented his suspicions to superiors, the response was, 'Keep your theories to yourself. That's so bizarre. The giggle factor will destroy your reputation.' The giggle factor applied to any topic such as UFOs, ESP, or far-out theories that were so far removed from normal experience that serious intelligence professionals would snicker at both the idea and whoever advanced the idea." Well, let me just stop there for a second. The giggle factor that he's talking about here, this is something that started, pretty early on. There were some people when UFOs started showing up in the late 40s, and a lot of newspaper articles, sometimes they would make fun of it. Even in the 1890s, the late 1890s, during the airship craze, where people were seeing these strange airships in 1896 and 1897, a lot of newspapers back then were making fun of it. But really, what really hurt this subject, I believe, was the fact that the United States government, after this Robertson panel met in 1953, they wanted to debunk this, and from that point on, they didn't want to cause hysteria with regard to this subject. So what they wanted to do was try to debunk everything. They wanted the United States military to debunk everything from that point on. And then, of course, as the Condon Committee in 1969, which led to the closure of Project Blue Book, I mean, that pretty much allowed the Air Force to wash its hands of investigating UFOs, and from that point on, it's been determined there's nothing to it, according to this Edward Condon, who signed off on this report. He gave the opinion that there's no reason to even look into this scientifically, even though there were other people who were part of that investigation for the Condon Committee that thought that, well, there's things here that we can't explain, so there is we would benefit from a scientific investigation. So that's one of the reasons why we have this giggle factor. And even today, even after the last 6 years now, 7 years we're going on now since the release of the Pentagon videos, those leaked videos, we still have it, but not as bad. It's starting to get a little bit better, I think. But anyway, let's continue with this article. It says here, "A present-day example of the giggle factor surrounds the United States Defense Department's investigation into UFOs, now called unidentified aerial phenomena, or UAPs. It's actually unidentified anomalous phenomena. I just want to make that correction. Despite establishing a formal office to investigate UAP and encouraging Department of Defense employees to report sightings without fear of the consequences, the reality is that many officials working in national security, privately or not so privately, snicker at the possibility that UFOs are real, viewing anyone who takes the topic seriously as part of the tinfoil hat brigade." I don't know how this guy knows this. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I agree with that one. I think they are starting to take it more seriously, and I don't know if there have been a lot more reports have been getting filed by military personnel. It's, that's something we've been seeing. So I don't know what he's talking about there, but let's continue here. He says, I learned this from conversations with current and former officials familiar with the Pentagon's UFO investigations while researching my new book, co-authored with Chris Gilbert, The New Science of UFOs, New Insights into an Old Mystery. Now, let me just stop there. I haven't read this book yet, but I think I might. I might pick this one up and check it out, see what he has to say. One individual told me, yeah, the Pentagon set up the UAP investigation group, but it was all window dressing to get members of Congress who want answers about UFOs off their backs. Now, let me just stop here for a second. I actually, in a way, I do agree with that statement. I think that the Arrow office, for instance, is window dressing. They don't really care. They're not trying to do any kind of serious investigation into this. That's because embedded within the Pentagon is the Secret Control Group, which is in charge of studying UFOs, in charge of the crash retrievals and reverse engineering, and they don't want that stuff to be, they don't want Congress to know about this stuff. That's what that's about. Anyway, continuing here, it says, Lou Elizondo, who led the Pentagon UAP investigations until 2017, said that he wanted to alert Secretary of Defense Mattis to flight safety and potential military hazards of UAP, but the Praetorian Guard around the Secretary wouldn't allow that. In frustration, Elizondo resigned to continue his investigations outside the government. Now, this is an interesting comment coming up here, interesting paragraph. He states, Elizondo and others who took UFOs seriously were not victims of a sinister cover-up or conspiracy, but a fundamental psychological need to believe we have control of our lives in the present and to predict what will happen to us in the future. Now, I agree and I don't agree with this, because I think that we are all victims of this cover-up because of greed and power and things like that. That's what this is all about. I mean, they're reverse engineering these things to try to get an upper hand on our enemies. That's what's happening here in the United States. I firmly believe that, based on all the research by different people over many decades, right? I've come to that conclusion. I think that we are the victims of that. But at the same time, I do agree that there is a need among people like Elizondo and others. There are concerns here that would be raised psychologically in anyone that, oh yeah, we need to get control of this, but we can't. I don't see how we ever could. I mean, even if we knew the answers, even if we knew what the Pentagon knows, right, the Secret Control Group, it's not going to help anybody, right? Psychologically, it's going to show that we are powerless against any of these extraterrestrials that are here doing whatever they're doing. We just wouldn't have the technology to do anything about it. Obviously, we don't. Anyway, continuing here, it says, research on the roots of emotional stress demonstrates that feeling out of control in the present and uncertain about the future are two of the biggest drivers of chronic stress. Yeah, that's perfectly true. I mean, I totally agree with that. As a result, we unconsciously adjust our perception of events to remain inside a low-stress comfort zone where we have at least the illusion of control and predictability of our fates. Yeah, I agree with all of this is making sense to me. But again, we're at this. We're in this situation. One of the reasons that Elizondo and others they recognize that there's an issue out there that these things could cause crashes. I mean, we need to know more about these UAP, and we think the public needs to know about it too. But of course, because of the secrecy involved in this, that we've been enduring now for almost 80 years, we're not getting that. And even though a lot of people think that if we got more answers from the Pentagon, that will solve the problem. But I don't. In a way, that's why I agree here with Hasseltine, because this is what people will be concerned. There's no question about it. It will affect some people psychologically. They're going to feel like this is out of our control. It says, and he continues here, thus, we presented evidence of uncontrollable or unpredictable changes to our lives. We tend to discount and even giggle at looming disruptions like climate change, COVID-19, UFOs, and other circumstances far outside our normal experience. In this light, the Pentagon's persistent UFO giggle factor is simply the deep-seated desire most of us have to remain inside our comfort zone, and social pressure reinforces our tendency to discount improbable looming events, as no one wants to be labeled as the boy who cried wolf or Chicken Little. Although UFOs may all turn out to be misidentifications of benign human activity, errant party balloons or drones, natural phenomena, ball lightning, or perceptual errors like optical illusions, credible reports, video, and radar information captured by the United States Navy in 2004 and 2015 suggest that something more exotic and unexplained is behind a few of the reports. Yeah, well, there was most certainly something more exotic behind some of these reports. Of course, as I think everyone in the UFO community agrees, a vast number of UFO reports could be attributed to natural phenomena or balloons or misidentifications and so on and so forth. But there is most certainly a percentage that are not. That are something else, that are things that are exhibiting a technology that far exceeds anything that we have. Anyway, continuing here, he writes, something exotic does not necessarily mean ETs, but could indicate that a foreign adversary has leapfrogged the United States in aerospace technology, which has occurred before when Russia surprised us with the first satellite, Sputnik, and both China and Russia fielded hypersonic missiles long before we did. If some UFO sightings are indeed foreign actors surveilling us or testing our responses and military capabilities, UFOs are frequently reported around U.S. military ranges and nuclear areas, then UFOs merit more than a giggle from defense officials. I totally agree with that. They do merit more than a giggle. And what he's saying here is that this could lead to trouble because some people in the military, because not everyone in the Pentagon is apprised of this reality, obviously, right? It's highly compartmented. I mean, some people suggest that there could be like up to 400 to 500 people total that know about this, the reality of the situation, and that's it. The rest are out there. They don't know about it. They're not. They don't have the clearances to know about it, and that's one of the issues here. And it could lead to trouble down the road, as Hasseltine will point out here. It says here, but the long-standing association of UFOs and aliens will continue to cause potentially real non-alien threats to national security from UFOs to be the, quote, baby that is thrown out with the bathwater, end quote, and continue to be discounted. If a foreign actor surprised us in a future conflict using leapfrog technology, it's hard to say what would happen on the battlefield, but one thing is certain, no one in the Pentagon would be giggling anymore. Then he gets into here the larger danger of the giggle factor. He says the UFO giggle factor raises a far bigger issue than the origins of mysterious flying objects that may or may not pose a threat. Unconsciously adjusting our perceptions to reduce stress associated with potentially disruptive phenomena is normal and even healthy under most circumstances because stress is a big driver of both physical and mental illness. Most certainly, there's no question about it. And you would have to imagine this is one of the issues. This is why a lot of people do want disclosure, because they want to know. They want to be able to know what's going on, and in this way, they maybe they think they'll feel comfortable in it. But there's a lot more to this, and I'm going to get into it when we're through with this article. It says here, but the pace of change from technology, globalization, demographic shifts, and other factors is accelerating so that unfamiliar and uncomfortable disruptions to our jobs, our relationships, and our well-being are likely to come at us at an ever-increasing rate. Ridiculing the prospect of the most extreme of these looming disruptions will keep us in our comfort zones for a while, but sooner or later leave us ill-prepared for the next 9/11 pandemic, war, or Capitol riot. Yes, we should not overreact to the prospect of low probability, high impact disruptions, but neither should we giggle lest someone else enjoy the last laugh. And you know what? Someone else who might be enjoying the last laugh might be those extraterrestrial visitors themselves. But I see where he's going with this. It's definitely an interesting article, I thought. I'll leave the link so you could check it out for yourself. But it had me thinking after I read this that, the psychology of the people who are just denying what we have in front of our faces and what we've had in front of our faces for a very long time. I mean, there's something here, folks. You think about it, all of the evidence that has been collected over the years, the multiple sightings, the multiple reports from people who have come in contact with extraterrestrials, some of the military personnel that have stepped forward over the years to talk about that there is a cover-up, that there are things going on behind the scenes. There's so much at this point, but yet there's a gigantic portion of the world that just continues to ignore this. And that's because they're not, psychologically, it frightens them. And I think that that's one of the things that drives a lot of these debunkers to do the things they do, because this reality of the extraterrestrial presence obviously takes them out of their comfort zone, and they don't want this to be real, and they want everyone else to think, hey, that's not real either, and they'll stick up for when some government official steps up to a microphone and starts telling us lies about there's nothing here, we never recovered any craft, and blah blah blah. They'll champion that. They love that because they need it. That's what they want to hear. But the reality is, folks, there is an extraterrestrial presence here, and there's so much evidence all around us. I'm gonna focus on just one little small portion of that evidence right now. Actually, I want to start here. This is a little paragraph here from Richard Dolan's UFOs and the National Security State on page, hold on a second, on page 87, and it's talking about Wilbert Smith. This guy was a Canadian engineer. It says here, on September 15th, Canadian government official, and this is in 1950, on September 15th, Canadian government official and engineer Wilbert Smith came to the United States with several colleagues and met in the office of Robert Sauerbacher, a physicist with the United States Defense Department Research and Development Board. And then later on it states here, to Smith's question as to whether saucers exist, Sauerbacher replied, yes, they exist, and we have not been able to duplicate their performance. He also told Smith that the UFO subject was classified 2 points higher even than the H-bomb. In fact, it is the most highly classified subject in the United States government at the present time. As for the reason for the classification, Sauerbacher replied, you may ask, but I can't tell you. That Sauerbacher did not know. What's interesting about this was that this was something Wilbert Smith actually had notes, and after he died, when people were going through his notes, they found this information. And I want to talk about this because actually, this Sauerbacher was still after Smith died in the early 80s. Some UFO researchers contacted Sauerbacher. He was still alive at the time. In 1983, he was in his mid 70s. And here's a little article. This is from Infinity Explorers. And this article headline reads, Einstein, this guy was a student of Einstein, by the way. Einstein student, Dr. Robert Sauerbacher's confirmation of UFO crash and reverse engineering attempts. And it says here, on September 15th, 1950, a remarkable interview took place in Washington, D.C., but it remained classified until the early 1980s when Canadian UFO researcher Arthur Bray discovered a memo written by Canadian engineer Wilbert B. Smith that discussed an alleged UFO crash rumor confirmed by a former student of Einstein, Dr. Robert Sauerbacher. And I'm going to go through this article a little bit. And it says, here's the background of this Robert Sauerbacher. He actually died. He ended up dying in 1986, 3 years after this. After he confirmed this meeting with Wilbert Smith. It says here, he was a preeminent scientist with a diverse background. He went to Harvard and he was dean of the graduate school, director of research at WED Laboratories, a successful inventor and a scientific consultant to the United States Marines and government agencies. He was also connected to the Joint Research and Development Board of the United States Department of Defense. He did a lot of research on rockets that could be controlled from a distance, specifically those that could be controlled remotely. Later, he would start the Washington Institute of Technology. His work in the field of remote-controlled rockets was considered cutting-edge during the Cold War era, and his research was used in the development of cruise missiles. So let me just stop there for a second. This guy, Sauerbacher, is incredible. I mean, what a background. This guy was a highly intelligent person, right? And then it says here, in the 1980s, Sauerbacher confirmed several facts about UFOs and extraterrestrial life to researchers William Steinman, Stanton Friedman, Jerry Clark, and William Moore. He said that he had been officially told about the crash of an extraterrestrial craft in the Southwest in the early 1950s. The crash may have been the Roswell UFO crash, or it may have happened at a different time. He also confirmed that the issue was considered more important than the development of the atomic bomb, and that the debris was both incredibly light and highly durable. He stated that the aliens were lightweight and constructed somewhat like insects. Now, I'm going to talk about this letter. Now, Steinman sent him a letter asking him some questions about the things that were found in Wilbert Smith's notes. And this is the letter. I'm going to pull it up here on screen here so we can see it. And I'm going to go through this letter, and then we'll talk about it. And I want to point some things out about this. And this letter was, it says it was written November 25th, 1983. It says, "Dear Mr. Steinman, I am sorry I have taken. Let me put my glasses on here. I am sorry I have taken so long in answering your questions. However, I have moved my office and have had to make a number of extended trips. To answer your last question in your letter of October 14th, 1983, there is no particular reason I feel I shouldn't or couldn't answer any or all of your questions. I am delighted to answer all of them to the best of my ability. You listed some of your questions in your letter of September 12th. I will attempt to answer them as you had listed them. 1. Relating to my own experience regarding recovered flying saucers, I had no association with any of the people involved in the recovery and have no knowledge regarding the dates of the recoveries. If I had, I would send it to you. 2. Regarding verification that persons you list were involved, I can only say this. John von Neumann was definitely involved. Dr. Vannevar Bush was definitely involved. And I think Dr. Robert Oppenheimer also. Let me just stop there for a second. I was just talking about that alleged white-hot Roswell document that was submitted from General Nathan Twining to President Harry Truman in 1947, and some of the names on here. And this, by the way, this letter was written before any Majestic documents were leaked, by the way, just to point that out. But as we know, Vannevar Bush's name was on that letter. He was part of Majestic 12, according to the Majestic 12 documents, as well as he was listed in the White Hot document. And also Robert Oppenheimer was one of the people that was listed in that White Hot document. So, continuing here. My association with the Research and Development Board under Dr. Compton during the Eisenhower administration was rather limited, so that although I had been invited to participate in several discussions associated with the reported recoveries, I could not personally attend the meetings. I am sure that they would have asked Dr. von Braun and the others that you listed were probably asked and may or may not have attended. This is all I know for sure. 3. I did receive some official reports when I was in my office at the Pentagon, but all of these were left there as at the time we were never supposed to take them out of the office. So, isn't it interesting? He's talking about actually seeing some of the documents related to these crashes and the retrieval efforts. He said that he saw them in this letter that he wrote when he was in his mid-70s in 1983. He died 3 years later after this letter. And as you could tell, this guy was of sound mind. This is not some letter that was written by some crackpot, right? Like maybe some debunkers might have you believe. He's relating his memory. You could tell he's as sharp as a tack when he's what he's writing here. This letter is put together very well, and of course I'll leave the link so you can check it out for yourself. Continuing here. It says, 4, I do not recall receiving any photographs such as you request, so I am not in the position to answer. 5, I have to make the same reply as on number 4. I recall the interview with Dr. Brenner of the Canadian Embassy. I think the answers I gave him were the ones you listed. Naturally, I was more familiar with the subject matter under discussion at that time. Actually, I would have been able to give more specific answers had I attended the meetings concerning the subject. You must understand that I took this assignment as a private contribution. We were called $1-a-year men. My first responsibility was the maintenance of my own business activity, so that my participation was limited. About the only thing I remember at this time is that certain materials reported to have come from flying saucer crashes were extremely light and very tough. I am sure our laboratories analyzed them very carefully. There were reports that instruments or people operating these machines were also a very lightweight, sufficient to withstand the tremendous deceleration and acceleration associated with their machinery. I remember in talking with some of the people at the office that I got the impression these aliens were constructed like certain insects we have observed on Earth, wherein because of the low mass, the inertial forces involved in operation of these instruments would be quite low. I still do not know why the high order of classification has been given and why the denial of the existence of these devices. I am sorry it has taken me so long to reply, but I suggest you get in touch with the others who may be directly involved in this program. And then he actually had a P.S. on there. He signed it, Dr. Robert Sarbacher. And P.S. It occurs to me that Dr. Bush's name is incorrect as you have it. Please check the spelling. I mean, this guy was as sharp as a tack at the age of 75 when he's writing this letter, sending it off to William Steinman at the time. And so there we go. There you have it. Now, this doesn't, I mean, this is somebody who had some exposure to what was going on back in the 1950s with regard to crash retrievals. And he states it plainly, bluntly, succinctly, and there you go. It doesn't, but for some reason, evidence like this, and this is only one little tiny drop of evidence, that there's a lot of other stuff we have, right? This should tell you all you need to know. Yes, there's a cover-up. Yes, there's people working on this behind the scenes, right? But yet, all this stuff is out there. It's in the public domain. But where's the mainstream media, or like some people want to call it nowadays, the legacy media? Where are they at? How come we're not talking about this kind of stuff? How come we're talking about what Mick West said about the gimbal still? Like, why are we still arguing about that? I mean, the evidence is right there in front of us. We're denying it. Psychologically, on the whole, the human race does not want to accept this reality. It's right there in front of us. It's always been. There's enough evidence at this point that shows the world that there's something happening here. But see, people, debunkers, skeptics, they're scared. A lot of people in the UFO community don't want to accept this for some reason. But it's real. We are being, visited, I don't know, monitored, studied, manipulated, whatever. There's an extraterrestrial presence here, but we're not, psychologically, we're not accepting it. Now look, I'm not no PhD, right? And I probably, if I were to be given a test on psychology, I'd probably get an F. Maybe I'd get a 4 for spelling my name right? However, psychologically, it's pretty clear what the problem is here. People, a vast majority of people, are just not ready to accept this reality, even though the evidence is, it's all around us. Look at these documents. How come we never hear anybody talking about this on TV for the most part? I mean, you'll see it in some UFO documentaries. You'll be mentioned in places like that. But debunkers, they'll come up with a million excuses of why this guy wrote this letter. Oh, he was an old man at the time. He was probably senile. That's not the letter of some senile old man. This is a guy with an incredible background, Harvard, an inventor, someone who was working in that research board under Eisenhower. No, why would he say these things? He wasn't making it up. He was telling you what he knew. He actually stated there, he actually saw documents, similarly to how David Grush is telling us today, how David Grush actually testified about this stuff in Congress. But yet, we're still playing this dumb game. I think a lot of it, and there's people in the scientific community too as well, like astronomers, like Neil deGrasse Tyson, who keeps making jokes about this kind of stuff. They just can't. They think that we're so advanced that we would see them at this point. Like you hear arguments from people like Neil deGrasse Tyson saying, "All these people with cell phones. Well, we would have the evidence by this point." These beings, if they're obviously they're coming here from some place, some other planet outside of this solar system. That's what it seems like, right? That's my belief. Doesn't make me right. I know there's other people out there that think it's interdimensional. I don't subscribe to that, but whatever the case, these beings are more intelligent than us, and they possess technology that far exceeds anything that we have. We're not even anywhere. How could we possibly be anywhere close to where these beings are? Just recently I was going through an article. I was reading about President James Garfield, and I just want to point this out. Now, in 1881, Garfield was assassinated. He was shot by some nut named Charles Guiteau. Guiteau wanted to become the ambassador to France under Garfield's administration, and Garfield's administration said no. So Guiteau was, of course, he's a nut. He decides, well, I'm going to shoot the president, and maybe Chester Arthur the vice president will make me. After I do that, maybe Chester Arthur will make me the ambassador. Of course, that didn't happen. Guiteau, a year after shooting Garfield, he was hanged by the neck until he was dead. But what happened after Garfield was shot? He didn't die right away. It took him 2 months to die. So they bring him back. They bring him back to the White House. It was a really hot. It was July 2nd, 1881, when he was shot. They bring him back to the White House, where he's treated by all these doctors. Alexander Graham Bell shows up with this primitive metal detector. One of the lead doctor, for some reason, believed that the bullet was lodged on the left side of Garfield's body, and wouldn't let Bell use this metal detector on the right side, only on the left side. But that's another story. But the issue is, well, all these doctors were sticking their unsterilized fingers and instruments into the bullet hole in Garfield, which led to him getting sepsis. He got infected. His body was filled with pus. He died an agonizing death over the course of a couple of months. The Navy actually set up, because it was so hot in the middle of summer, they wanted to cool down the sick room where Garfield was in. So they actually got a box filled with ice, and they put fans in front of it, and to use as a primitive air conditioning at the time. That was less than 150 years ago. We had doctors here in the United States of America sticking their dirty fingers into the bullet wound hole of James Garfield, unsterilized, instruments in there, trying to find a bullet. They never found the bullet, not until the autopsy. After he was dead, they caused him to die. Think about that. That was less than 150 years ago. Look at where we have gotten since there. But see, we're just at the tip of the iceberg when it comes to technology and medical science. Like medical professionals today say that Garfield would have survived if it would have happened now, because the kind of technology we have, would have saved him. But just think, that was only less than 150 years ago. Where are we going to be 150 years from now? Where are we going to be 1,000 years from now? See, these people, the debunkers, the deniers, right? They can't accept this reality. It's right in front of their face. They can't understand. They think that we're at some incredible high peak of technology, and we would know if they were here. We would see them. We would see it with our cell phones and blah, blah, blah. How come somebody doesn't steal an ashtray out of the flying saucer to prove that they were abducted? Blah, blah, blah. They just can't believe that there's anything else out there that is smarter than we are right now. They just can't get it out of their head. It's psychological. It scares the hell out of them. That's what's preventing us from moving forward with this. One of the reasons. Of course, the other reason is the cover-up itself. That's most certainly the case. Most certainly the case. But I just want to point these things out. That's where we are. That's what's been going on. And like I said, psychologically, there's a lot of people who just can't accept this reality, even though it's right in front of our faces. It's right there. There's no way that Robert Saulbacher just put that letter together, just dreamed it up. Why would he want to mess up his legacy? Why would he want to do that? No, he wouldn't want to do that. He actually was just speaking the truth. He actually delivered a letter to William Steinman that had the truth about what he knew. And what did he know? He knows that they're recovering these things. He knows all about it. He knew about the beings themselves. He actually saw documentation himself. He states in that letter that he actually saw it himself. And that's just one little piece of evidence, But yet, we can't accept it. There's just too many people on this planet that just aren't, obviously, seemingly unready for it. I mean, the evidence is right there in front of our faces, but we have all these useful idiots that are basically helping along with the cover-up by completely trying to change the subject to something else. Oh, maybe Saulbacher was a crackpot at that time. After that great career, maybe he just went nuts and decided to write something like that, or whatever they would say. But that's where we are. There's evidence right in front of our faces, but psychologically, there's a lot of people among us who are scared out of their gourds, and they just don't want to accept it, so that's where we're at. Anyway, I want to say thank you. Oh, one more thing. I forgot. I have to make this statement. The woman is making me say this. She wrote it down for me. She says, hold on, let me put my glasses on. The powers that be have declared that I must ask for subscriptions and likes, and I actually do read all of your comments. Now, of course, as many people out there know, I don't usually do that. I don't ask for people to subscribe or give me likes. She wants me to start doing that more often, so I have to do that because she's the boss. Anyway. I want to say thank you all for joining me. Until next time.